twin suns of Valora hung low over the horizon, painting the alien city in shades of gold and violet. Human engineer Ethan Cole stood near the energy reactor complex, his uniform covered in dust and metallic grease. He was tired, but his mind refused to rest. The alien machines around him hummed with power, their design unlike anything from Earth, sleek and alive, almost breathing. He had been working on this project for 6 months, assigned by the Galactic Alliance to help rebuild Valora's warp network after the long and bitter war. But despite the peace agreement, humans were still considered outsiders here. Tools to fix what others had broken, never equals. The Valorans were tall, graceful beings with luminous skin and eyes that shimmered like crystal. They believed emotion was a weakness. Something primitive, something human among them. One name was whispered more than others. Princess Lyrae, the daughter of the High Sovereign. She was known as the Ice Star, beautiful and distant, untouched by feelings, trained to command fleets and rule with logic. No one dared to speak to her unless ordered, and humans were strictly forbidden to even look upon her without permission. Ethan didn't care much for politics, but he had heard rumors. They said the princess had never smiled, that her voice could silence an entire room, and yet sometimes late at night. He caught himself wondering what kind of person hid behind that perfect mask. He shook the thought away. He was here to work. Not dream that evening a storm brewed over the horizon, thick clouds charged with plasma energy. Ethan was checking the reactor conduits when the ground began to tremble. Warning sirens screamed through the corridors. The reactor core flickered unstable, and energy readings spiked off the charts. He shouted to his team, "Shut down sequence now." But it was too late. The plasma surge tore through the conduits like lightning, igniting fire and chaos, as explosions echoed across the palace district. Ethan saw something horrifying on his scanner. The epicenter of the energy buildup was beneath the royal chamber. Without thinking, he grabbed his toolkit and ran toward the restricted zone. Guards shouted after him, "Human, stop. You're not authorized there." But he didn't listen. He sprinted through smoke-filled hallways, the air thick with heat and falling debris. When he reached the royal wing, the massive door had collapsed. Twisted metal blocking the entrance, he forced it open with his bare hands, sparks biting into his skin. Inside, the air shimmered with static, and in the center of the chaos lay Princess Lyrae, pinned beneath a fallen support beam. Her armor's energy field flickered weakly, and for the first time, Ethan saw fear in her glowing eyes. He rushed to her side, grabbing the emergency lift from his kit. "Don't move," he said. "I'll get you out." The beam was heavier than he expected, but adrenaline pushed him forward. She watched him, her lips trembling slightly as she whispered, "Human, why are you here?" He gritted his teeth. "Because if I don't, you'll die." The words came out firm, but inside his heart pounded, not from fear but from the strange intensity of her gaze. When the beam finally lifted, she fell into his arms, light and fragile, yet radiating power. For a moment, time stopped. Her silver hair brushed against his cheek, her skin warm, almost human. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, something forbidden, something dangerous. "Your hands," she murmured softly, "they are..." Trembling, he tried to laugh. "Yeah, well, it's been a long day." A sudden explosion rocked the hall, sending both of them sprawling. He shielded her with his body as debris rained down. When the dust cleared, he felt her heartbeat against his chest. Quick and unsteady, she looked up at him, her voice a whisper lost in the noise. "No one has ever touched me before." He blinked, unsure how to answer. Well, now someone has. Before they could move, a squad of royal guards burst in, weapons raised. They froze at the sight, the human holding their princess in his arms. The commander barked, "Step away, human." Ethan stood slowly, lifting his hands, but the princess spoke first, her voice sharp and commanding. "Lower your weapons. He saved me." The guards hesitated, stunned, for never before had she defended anyone, let alone a human. As they escorted her away for medical aid, she turned once more, her glowing eyes meeting his. "Ethan Cole," she said, her voice calm yet soft. "You disobeyed orders." He nodded. "Yeah. Why?" she asked again. He paused, looking at the shattered reactor behind them. "Because sometimes following rules means losing lives." She stared at him for a moment longer, and something unreadable flickered across her face. When she finally spoke, her tone was quieter, almost human. "Perhaps," she said, "humans are not as weak as we thought." Then she was gone, leaving him standing amid the smoke and silence. As the night fell over Valora, Ethan looked at the stars through the cracked glass dome. Somewhere up there, he knew. A princess who wasn't supposed to feel was questioning everything she had ever been taught. And he, a simple human engineer, had just broken the first law of two civilizations. The line between duty and desire had begun to blur, and deep down he knew this was only the beginning. The next sunrise over Valora was quiet, but the air felt different. The great palace stood rebuilt and silent, yet beneath its glowing towers, whispers moved like wind through corridors. Everyone spoke about the human who had entered the royal zone, the one who touched the princess and lived in Valoran history. No outsider had ever done such a thing and survived. Yet Princess Lyrae had ordered his release. Her exact words recorded in shock across command halls. "He saved me. He is not to be harmed." Ethan returned to his engineering post as if nothing had happened. He kept his head low, repaired conduits, adjusted scanners, and avoided the looks from guards who passed him with suspicion. But sometimes he could feel it, a faint sensation, like someone watching him from afar late at night. When the shift was over and the workstations dimmed, he would glance over his shoulder and swear he saw a faint shimmer of silver light vanish into the dark. In the royal chambers, Princess Lyrae stared at the reflection in her mirror. The crack in her armor had been repaired, yet her mind wasn't at peace. No meditation, no logic sequence, no war training could silence the image of that human. The warmth of his hands, the sound of his voice. The way he looked at her, not with fear, but with care, she whispered softly to herself. Why can't I stop thinking about him? Her personal attendant, a tall alien named Varen, bowed low. My princess, the council awaits your presence for the diplomatic meeting. She turned sharply, hiding her unease. Proceed without me. But your highness, I said proceed, she interrupted, her tone cold but trembling slightly beneath the surface. That night, curiosity overcame her. Disguised in a dark cloak, she moved silently through the palace corridors, bypassing guards with the skill of a warrior. Her footsteps carried her toward the lower engineering sectors where the humans worked. There she found Ethan, sitting alone beside a flickering generator, reading a holographic screen filled with old Earth poetry. He didn't notice her at first. His lips moved softly as he read aloud. Her translator caught the words, "Stars die, but their light lingers, reminding us love is not a weakness, it's the universe remembering itself." Something stirred within her, something she couldn't name. When he looked up, she stepped forward, the dim light revealing her face. He froze, almost dropping his tablet. Your Highness, he said, standing quickly. You shouldn't be here. Her voice was calm but curious. You read. Emotional words, why? He smiled faintly. Because they remind me what makes us human. She tilted her head, her crystal eyes narrowing. Your kind believes in emotions as strength. Yes, he said. And you don't? She hesitated, then whispered. Emotions destroy reason, they create chaos, but, she paused. You risked your life for me and chaos did not win. Ethan laughed quietly. Maybe it's because sometimes chaos is worth it. The way he said it made her chest tighten. A strange warmth spreading through her core for the first time in her life. She felt her pulse quicken, not from battle, but from something far gentler, far more dangerous. Suddenly, the sound of approaching guards echoed through the hall. Lyrae pulled back into the shadows, her cloak wrapping tightly around her. Before disappearing, she whispered, You will not speak of this meeting. He nodded. You have my word, Princess. After she left, Ethan leaned back, his heart racing. He could hardly believe what had just happened. The alien princess, ruler of the most advanced empire in the quadrant, had come to see him. Not for command, not for questions, but out of curiosity, maybe even something more. In the following days, strange things began to happen. A delicate blue flower appeared on his workstation. Glowing faintly under the lights, Valoran flowers were rare, symbols of curiosity and change. Then came a small holographic sphere delivered to his quarters with no name. When he activated it, a faint projection appeared. It was her voice, soft, uncertain. You once said emotions can be strength. Prove it to me. He stared at the message for a long time. Not knowing what to feel, part of him wanted to report it. To pretend none of this was real, but another part, stronger, bolder, wanted to see where it would lead. Later that night, he found himself outside the observatory dome. the same place he had seen her once before during a ceremony. The stars above Valora burned bright, and there she was, standing alone, no guards, no crown, only her eyes reflecting the galaxies beyond. When she turned to him, she didn't speak immediately. Then with a quiet, almost human voice, she said, "Your world, Earth? Does it really have skies like this?" He nodded. "Yes, sometimes even brighter." "I would like to see it one day," she said, her tone soft, not as a princess, but as someone who can feel. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the distance between alien and human fading beneath the starlight. Then she said something that would echo in his mind forever. "Perhaps what makes you human is what we have been missing all along." As she walked away, Ethan realized something impossible was happening. An alien princess, raised in a world where emotion was forbidden, was beginning to feel, and in her quiet curiosity, love had found its first spark. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between human and alien began to blur. Princess Lyrae continued to meet Ethan in secret, far from the eyes of the council and the guards. Sometimes she appeared as a shadow in the corridor, other times as a faint glow in the workshop doorway. Each time Ethan would stop working, his heart skipping as her soft voice filled the silence. They spoke not of politics or war, but of small things, how humans laugh, how Velerans dream without sleep, how stars sound when heard through plasma sensors. Ethan taught her how to smile. It happened by accident. When he told her an old Earth joke about engineers and broken tools, she tried to mimic his grin, her lips trembling awkwardly. Then suddenly a small laugh escaped her. It was quiet, pure, and unlike anything he'd ever heard before. He looked at her in awe. "You just laughed," he said. She blinked, surprised at herself. It felt strange, she whispered, but not unpleasant. Their meetings grew longer, their talks deeper. She would ask him about human hearts, about love, about why humans choose feelings over logic. Ethan would answer honestly, "Because feelings remind us we're alive, and without them, what's the point of all this?" Sometimes she would go silent, her gaze fixed on the stars, as if trying to understand a language her people had long forgotten. But outside their secret moments, danger was growing. The royal advisor, Lord Kyle, had begun to notice her absences. He was an old Veleran with skin like silver stone and eyes like frozen glass. He distrusted humans and believed emotions made rulers weak. When rumors reached him that the princess had been seen near the human sectors, his suspicions turned sharp one evening. While Ethan was working in the reactor bay, Kale arrived unexpectedly with a squad of guards. They searched the area. Scanning every console, Ethan stood calmly, wiping his hands on a rag. "Can I help you?" he asked. Kale's voice was cold. "You may help by explaining why the princess visits this place." Ethan froze, his pulse racing, but before he could speak, a new voice came from behind. "She visits because I command it," said Lyrae, stepping into the light. The guards bowed instantly. Kale hesitated. "Your Highness," he said slowly, "forgive me. But this is irregular." She stared him down. "Then adjust your standards," she replied. Her tone carried authority, but her heartbeat was unsteady. Ethan caught her glance. A silent warning, "Say nothing." When the guards finally left, Ethan turned to her. "You didn't have to do that." She shook her head. "I did, they would have taken you." He sighed. "This is getting dangerous." Her eyes softened. "Then tell me to stop." He hesitated. "You know I can't." She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Neither can I." The space between them felt charged. Alive. For the first time, she reached out, her hand trembling slightly as her fingers brushed against his. It was a simple touch, yet it sent a storm through both their hearts. Her voice broke the silence. "Your skin is warm." He smiled faintly. "And yours glows." She looked down, noticing the faint shimmer in her palm. "It happens when emotions rise," she said quietly. "We were taught to suppress it." He took her hand fully this time. "Maybe you shouldn't." She didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered, "If anyone saw this, I'd be stripped of my title." Ethan replied softly, "Then I guess we're both breaking rules tonight." The world seemed to slow, the humming machines fading into silence. Her eyes reflected him like twin stars caught in crystal, and then for a fleeting heartbeat they leaned closer. But before their lips could meet, the alarm blared, red lights flashing across the chamber. Kyle's voice echoed through the comm system. Security breach detected near reactor core. All personnel remain at your stations. Liray stepped back quickly, her royal expression returning. Go, they must not find you here, she ordered. Ethan hesitated. What about you? I'll handle them, she said, already turning away. Her cloak swirling like liquid light. He wanted to stop her, to say something more. But she was gone before the words could form. Moments later, Kale entered again, his gaze sharp. He looked around. Suspicious, but found nothing. Strange, he muttered. I can still feel the trace of human warmth. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat near the viewport watching the stars, thinking about her. Her courage, her confusion, her forbidden touch. He realized that whatever this was between them, it wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was something real. Something both of them would soon have to face far above in her private chamber. Liray stood before the mirror again. Her reflection glowed faintly, her heartbeat echoing like music in her ears. She whispered to herself, I am the daughter of Valora, yet my heart beats for a human. Outside her window, lightning from the plasma storm illuminated the night sky. It felt like the universe itself was warning her. Love was a dangerous bond, but in her eyes the danger only made it stronger. The next morning began with silence, the kind that warned of a storm before it came. Ethan woke to the sound of heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors. Outside his small quarters, armored guards were sweeping the human section of the compound. Scanning, searching, not speaking. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, when he stepped out. He saw a holographic notice flickering in the air above the central plaza. Royal inquiry. Unauthorized contact between human personnel and the Crown. His blood ran cold. It didn't mention names. But everyone knew who it was about by midday. The whispers had spread like wildfire, and Ethan was taken into custody. He didn't resist. 2 guards led him through glass corridors filled with alien light. Their reflections shimmered against polished crystal walls as they moved toward the royal tribunal. When the great doors opened, the sight stunned him. The hall was filled with the Valoran elite, their glowing eyes fixed on him like blades. At the center, upon a raised dais, sat the High Sovereign, and beside him Princess Liray, silent, her expression unreadable. The Sovereign's voice echoed deep and sharp. Human Ethan Cole, you stand accused of corruption, of influencing the royal heir, of violating sacred protocol. Ethan raised his head, steady despite the weight pressing on his chest. With respect, I saved her life, he said. A murmur rippled through the audience. But Kale, the advisor, stepped forward, his tone dripping with disdain. Saving her does not grant the right to defile her honor. Liray flinched at his words, her hands tightening around the edge of her throne. Her father turned toward her. Princess, speak the truth. Did this human manipulate you? The hall fell utterly still. Liray's lips parted, but no words came. Every part of her screamed to tell the truth, to defend him, but her position, her crown, her people's eyes held her hostage. Finally, she whispered, No, father, he did nothing. Kale's eyes narrowed. Then why does he speak to you as if you are equals? She turned away, unable to answer. The Sovereign sighed, his voice heavy. Then the fault lies not in intention, but in proximity. He gestured toward the guards. Remove him from the capital at once. Ethan stepped forward, his voice firm. Wait, if I'm guilty, then punish me. But don't make her carry shame for something she didn't do. Liray's head snapped up. Her eyes wide with disbelief, he continued. I broke your rule, not hers, because I couldn't ignore someone in danger. The hall erupted with shocked voices. The courage of a human defying the Valoran throne was unthinkable. Kale's face twisted with anger. Silence, he barked. You will speak only when spoken to. Ethan met his glare unflinching. Then speak to me. The crowd gasped, and even the Sovereign's expression softened for a brief moment, as if he saw something he hadn't expected. A spark of dignity he couldn't crush. The trial ended with judgment. Ethan was declared unfit for further service on Valora, sentenced to exile. He would be sent back to the outer colonies, stripped of all access and recognition. When the guards led him away, Liray stood frozen, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. As he passed her, he stopped for just one breath of time, his voice quiet enough for her alone. You once asked why humans risk everything for feelings, he whispered. Now you know. That night, Valora felt colder than ever. Rain fell over the crystal towers, shimmering like tears against the light. Liray sat alone in her chamber, her crown placed on the table beside her. Her reflection stared back through the window. Pale, trembling, uncertain, Varen entered softly, bowing his head. "My princess. The human transport leaves at dawn." She didn't respond, only whispered, "And I am the reason he's gone." In the distance, the sound of thunder rolled across the sky. She pressed her hand against the glass, her pulse glowing faintly beneath her skin. "Why do I feel like I've lost something more than duty?" she murmured. For the first time in her life, she cried, not because of pain, but because of something she could no longer deny. She loved him, and that truth terrified her more than any war she had ever fought. Meanwhile, Ethan was escorted through the docking bay. The rain still fell as he boarded the shuttle, his uniform damp and torn. He took one last look at the city of glass and light, the place where he had met her. He wanted to hate it, but he couldn't. Every corner of that alien world held a memory of her voice, her touch, her laughter, as the engines roared to life. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Goodbye, Lyrae." Above the planet, a flash of lightning illuminated the sky inside her chamber. The princess looked upward through the same storm, whispering the same name. The distance between them stretched like an ocean of stars. But the bond remained, invisible and unbroken. Somewhere deep within her heart, Lyrae made a silent vow. "This isn't the end," she said. Not yet, the storm raged on. But for both of them, it was no longer a symbol of fear. It was the universe itself, wild, unpredictable, and alive, just like the emotions they could no longer hide. And beyond the storm, fate waited patiently for their next move. The days after Ethan's exile passed like shadows drifting through a dying sun. Valora moved on, or at least pretended to. The royal court resumed its meetings. Fleets patrolled the skies, and the people spoke in calm, emotionless tones, but deep within the palace. Princess Lyrae's heart refused to obey each night. She found herself drawn to the balcony of her private chamber, staring at the endless stars somewhere out there she knew. Ethan Cole was alone, exiled to a forgotten colony. The thought burned inside her chest like a living flame she couldn't smother. Her world demanded silence, yet her soul screamed for him. Her advisors noticed her distraction, her absence in council meetings, the way her tone softened when humans were mentioned. Kale confronted her one morning, his voice cold as iron. "Your Highness, your father believes it's time to arrange your bonding with Commander Theros, the next fleet heir." Her gaze turned sharp. "I will not," she said. He frowned. "You cannot refuse." "The bloodline must remain pure." She stood, her armor gleaming under the chamber lights. "Then perhaps the bloodline itself needs to change." Kale froze, speechless. Before he could respond, she turned away, her voice low but filled with fire. "You speak of purity, yet call empathy corruption. You're losing yourself," he warned. "Emotions destroy rulers." She looked back, her silver eyes glowing with defiance. "Then let me be destroyed." That night, when the palace lights dimmed and the guards changed shifts, she acted in silence. She entered the royal hangar. Rows of ships rested under soft starlight, each one a symbol of Valoran pride and control. She moved to the end of the row, where a black and gold vessel slept beneath an energy shield, the Starwind, her personal craft forbidden for private use. Her hand trembled as she placed it on the console. The system recognized her command sequence instantly. "Princess Lyrae of Valora. Authentication accepted." The engines hummed to life. She whispered to the ship's core AI, "Set destination. Sector 9, Colony Sigma 12. Alarms blared across the hangar. Security drones whirred to life, blinding lights cutting through the shadows. Kale's voice came over the comm system, furious. "Lyrae, stop this madness!" She ignored him, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond the force field. The hangar gates opened with a roar of energy, and the Starwind shot forward like a falling comet, breaking through the storm clouds and disappearing into hyperspace. As the ship streaked through the worm fields, Lyrae's reflection shimmered in the cockpit glass. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Forgive me, Father, but I can't live by rules that kill what I've become." The AI's soft voice responded, "Princess, such actions classify as treason under Valoran law." She closed her eyes. "Then I am a traitor." Across the galaxy, Ethan lived in silence. The mining colony on Sigma 12 was cold, harsh, and gray. He worked repairing drilling machines for scraps, his once clean uniform now faded and torn. The people there barely spoke. Most were exiles like him, forgotten by both humans and aliens at night. He would look up at the fractured sky, Where the dust storms never fully cleared, he thought of her voice, her touch, her courage he told himself to forget. But his heart refused to listen. Then one stormy evening, as he sat outside his shelter, a flash of blue light tore across the clouds. A ship descended, sleek, radiant, unmistakably Valoran. Miners scattered in fear, shouting, "Imperial craft, hide!" Ethan didn't move, he just stared, unable to believe what he was seeing. The Starwind landed with a surge of energy, the dust storm swirling violently around it. As the hatch opened, a familiar figure stepped out, her armor shining beneath the lightning. Her eyes locked on him. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind howled between them, dust and light twisting through the air. Then she said softly, her voice trembling, "Human, I tried to forget you, I tried to resist." She stepped closer, her glowing eyes filled with raw emotion. "But I want you." Ethan's breath caught in his chest. He took a step forward, then another, until he stood right before her. "You left everything," he whispered. "I left nothing worth keeping," she replied. "Except what I found in you," the storm roared louder, wrapping around them like the universe itself was listening. When their hands met, it was no longer forbidden. No longer a secret, it was survival, it was truth. For that one moment, it didn't matter that an empire wanted her captured, or that he had been cast away. They were just two souls that had found something too powerful to erase. Inside the ship, the AI's voice broke the silence, warning, "Multiple vessels approaching from Valoran Command." Ethan looked up at her. "They're coming for you." She smiled faintly. "Let them come." He shook his head. "They'll destroy us both." She gripped his hand tighter. "Then we'll go down together." The Starwind's engines roared to full power, and as they rose into the burning sky, Ethan whispered, "You're insane." Her lips curved into a soft smile. "No." Just finally alive, as the ship vanished into the storm, the Valoran pursuit fleet appeared on scanners. But the princess who once ruled through logic now flew by heart, and the human who once obeyed orders now followed love together. They became fugitives among the stars, two rebels defying empires, and in the darkness of space, where no law could reach, a new legend began. The Starwind glided through deep space, silent and bright like a single spark in an endless night. Ethan sat in the cockpit beside Liray, watching the stars stretch into silver ribbons. They had been flying for hours, escaping patrols and scanning fields. Hiding between asteroid shadows and ion storms, neither spoke much. But the air between them carried 1,000 unspoken words. Lirai's eyes glowed softly in the dim light, her face calm but distant. She had risked everything, her crown, her family, her home, for a single truth she could no longer deny. Ethan glanced at her and said quietly, "You didn't have to come for me." Her voice was soft but steady. "I didn't come for you." She paused. "I came for myself." He turned to her, confused. "What do you mean?" She looked out at the stars. "All my life I followed orders, rules, logic," she said. "But the first time I disobeyed, I felt alive." The ship drifted silently as her words lingered in the air. Outside, a massive planet loomed ahead, half covered in clouds, half bathed in light. "This place," she said, tapping the screen, "is a forgotten moon. Once used by traders, now empty." Ethan nodded. "Good. We could use some quiet." They landed on the moon's surface, the engines cooling under a violet sky filled with twin suns and drifting ice rings. The world was silent except for the hum of energy beneath their feet. They set up a small camp near the edge of a frozen lake, the air thin but breathable for the first time in months. They could finally stop running. As the sun set, painting the horizon in blue and silver, Ethan lit a small fire from scavenged minerals. Liray sat beside him, her cloak wrapped around her armor, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She seemed peaceful, almost human. He looked at her and smiled. "You know, for someone raised in logic, you're pretty reckless." She tilted her head slightly, pretending to think. "And for a human, you're surprisingly calm for someone hunted by an empire." He laughed, and for a moment, the silence between them turned warm. Then she asked softly, "Ethan, what is love?" The question caught him off guard. He stared into the flickering firelight, thinking. "Love," he said slowly, "is when someone else's heartbeat matters more than your own." She looked down at her hands, her pulse faintly glowing. "Then I think, I understand it now." He turned to her. and for the first time her face was open, vulnerable, free from all the armor she had worn her whole life. The stars above shimmered brighter, reflecting in her silver eyes. "I tried to fight it," she whispered. "I told myself it was weakness, that it was only curiosity." Her voice trembled. "But when they sent you away, something inside me broke." She looked at him, her eyes wet with tears that shimmered like starlight. "I couldn't breathe knowing you were gone." Ethan reached out, his hand resting gently over hers. "You don't have to fight it anymore," he said softly. Her fingers tightened around his. "You don't understand, Ethan. My people will never forgive this." He smiled faintly. "Then let them hate me instead." The night deepened, and the stars reflected across the lake like endless mirrors. She turned toward him, her voice a whisper. "Human." I tried to resist, her breath caught, trembling. "But I want you." The universe seemed to hold its breath as her words filled the air. Ethan leaned closer, their foreheads touching gently. The glow from her skin mixed with the light from the fire, painting them in silver and gold. When their lips met, it was quiet, fragile, and infinite all at once, two beings from different worlds, breaking the laws of both, creating something new afterward. They sat together under the open sky, her head resting on his shoulder. The stars moved slowly above them, silent witnesses to their impossible bond. Ethan whispered, "Do you ever regret it?" She smiled faintly. "Every moment I lived without this, yes." He looked at her. "And now," she whispered back, "now I regret nothing, but peace never lasted long." As they sat beneath the stars, the ship's sensors began to blink red. The AI spoke in its calm, artificial tone. Multiple warp signatures detected approaching from Valoran command fleet. Ethan stood quickly, his heart racing. "They found us." Lee rose, her expression calm but fierce, the glow in her eyes burning brighter. She looked toward the horizon, where distant lights cut through the sky. Then she turned to him and said, "No matter what happens next, remember this moment." He nodded. "Always." The wind swept across the frozen plain as the first ships broke through the atmosphere. The quiet moon that had witnessed their confession now trembled with thunder and light. Lee activated her armor, her voice strong again. "They came to take me back. But I'm not theirs anymore." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let's make sure they never forget that." Together they walked toward the Starwind. Side by side, two fugitives, two hearts, one impossible truth. As they entered the ship, the engines roared, flames lighting the dark horizon. The chase for their freedom and their love had only just begun, and above them in the endless night the stars shone bright. The morning light on the frozen moon rose quiet and sharp. The twin suns painted the horizon in silver and red, casting long shadows across the plains. Ethan and Lee stood side by side at the edge of the landing ridge, their ship behind them glowing faintly in the thin air. Above, the sky rippled with light, Valoran warships emerging from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming like blades. It was not a patrol, it was an armada. The ground trembled as the fleet descended. Through the wind came a voice over the comms, cold and commanding. "This is Admiral Kale of the Valoran High Fleet, Princess Lee. You are ordered to surrender immediately." His tone carried no emotion, only duty. Lee stepped forward, her cloak whipping behind her, her voice calm but strong. "Kale, lower your weapons," she said. "This is not a war." There was a pause, then Kale replied, "It became one the moment you chose a human over your own kind." Ethan turned to her. "They won't stop." "I know," she said, her eyes fixed on the ships above. He looked at her and whispered, "Then what's the plan?" She smiled faintly. "The plan," she said, "is to show them what they fear most, the truth." She activated her communicator and connected to the Valoran public channels. Her voice echoed across every ship, every screen, every transmission relay in orbit. "This is Princess Lee of Valora," she began, "and I speak not as your ruler, but as one of you." She paused, her heart beat loud in her chest. "For generations, we have been told emotions are weakness, that love corrupts. That logic alone defines strength." Her gaze lifted toward the stars. "But I have learned that love is not weakness, it is evolution." The silence that followed was heavy. Kale's voice finally broke through. "Enough of this blasphemy. You shame your ancestors." She raised her chin. "Then let me carry their shame with pride." The ships began to move, engines flaring, weapons primed. Ethan stepped forward beside her. If this is it, then we face it together. She looked at him, her eyes soft. Always, she said. Then she turned to the sky and gave a single command. Transmit visual. Across the Valoran network. An image appeared. Lyrae standing beside a human, hand in hand, both looking toward the fleet. It wasn't an act of defiance, it was an act of truth. Billions of Valorans across the Empire saw their princess, not as a soldier or ruler, but as something new, something impossibly alive. And deep within those watching, something began to stir. Admiral Kael's voice wavered. You would destroy centuries of order for this? Lyrae's reply was quiet but sharp. No, Kael. I would destroy centuries of fear. He hesitated, and for a heartbeat his ship stopped its advance. But not all the commanders agreed. A missile broke formation, streaking toward the moon, cutting through the clouds like fire. Ethan grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the Starwind. Run! He shouted. The missile struck the ground near the ridge, the blast throwing them off their feet. The sky filled with chaos, light, smoke, and thunder. Ethan rose, coughing, his suit torn. Lyrae's armor glowed with cracks. Energy bleeding from her pulse field, he rushed to her. Are you hurt? She shook her head, her voice weak but determined. I'm fine. Then she looked up, eyes narrowing. Open channel to the fleet, she commanded. The ship AI obeyed instantly. Her voice returned. Stronger now. If I die today, let it be known. I die for a future where logic and heart can exist as one. Her words echoed across the system. Even Kael went silent, staring at his screen, his breath shallow. For the first time in Valoran history, emotion silenced war. Then something unexpected happened, one by one. The ships began to power down their weapons, not by command but by choice. Officers stood in their stations, staring at her image, and slowly bowed their heads. Kael looked around in disbelief as his crew disobeyed his orders. He clenched his fists. She has infected you with human disease, he snarled. His second-in-command looked at him quietly. No, Admiral. She has reminded us we are alive. Kael's ship disengaged from the formation, retreating into hyperspace, defeated not by battle but by belief. The remaining fleet held position, silent, watching as Lyrae and Ethan stood beneath the stars. The Starwind lifted once more, its engines bright against the horizon. Lyrae spoke softly. It's over. Ethan nodded. Or maybe it's just beginning, she smiled, her eyes glowing with light. Perhaps, she said. This is the dawn of two worlds. As they rose into the sky, their image continued to transmit across galaxies, human and alien side by side, symbols of something greater than power, connection, and far beyond Valora. On distant human worlds, people watched too. The story of a human engineer and an alien princess began to spread across the stars. Not as legend, but as hope. The universe was vast, cold, and cruel, but for the first time it felt alive again. And as the Starwind vanished into the dawnlight, the AI recorded her final words. Love is not the end of reason, it is the reason life continues. The stars shimmered in quiet agreement, and the galaxy, divided for centuries, began to heal under their lighter than ever, as if the universe itself was whispering approval.